there's a lot of pacifist type of thinking in World War II as Hitler was expanding. Hitler framed himself as a victim of the past, of history. He never attacked anybody. Everyone's always threatening to attack him. That's kind of the narrative. And he keeps expanding. He keeps sweet talking with his charisma, all the countries around him, into sort of embracing pacifism. Stay out of the war until the war is on your doorstep. So France, just very suboptimal military strategy from the perspective of many European nations in response to Hitler. They were basically hoodwinked by his words. So then there's Churchill, Winston Churchill, who stepped up and says, perhaps irrationally, from some kind of economics perspective, saying we're not going to back down. We're going to fight Germany. And perhaps that step alone is one of the biggest reasons that Hitler failed in his expansion. That decision to fight back, what's the right way to do that? If you're Winston Churchill, what's the right way to do that? If you're to fight back evil when violence is required. Now, you could argue that that no war is just, but there is such a thing as a just war index, and a lot of people argue if there is a just war in the 20th century, it's World War II. So how would you fund, if you were Britain, the war? Would you require Winston Churchill to convince the populace? Like, don't fight until they're fully convinced that this is the right thing to do. You can't just make a decision for them. You have to convince them fully so that they give their life and they give their money to support the war. Is that the right way to do it?
I think so. And I think when you have a true threat and a true evil and a true force that people really do think is genuine, you don't need to convince them. I mean, when it's real, people will want to fight and people will want to pay to fight. And I mean, I think, though, on this particular example, I think, the best way to fight Hitler is to have not fought World War I, not take out the Kaiser of Germany. If Britain and the US had not gotten involved in World War I, which really is the senseless war about nothing. Like, what was in it, and what was the goal from anybody fighting that war? If you look at it, after World War I, there were very minor adjustments in the borders of the countries that were participating. So Germany lost some land, Austria lost some land, but really it wasn't all that massive. And it wasn't like, it wasn't like Britain wanted to take over Germany and move their people into Germany and kick the Germans out. So there was no real value from that war. And that's why the British people didn't want to take part in it. And that's why, if they hadn't done this enormously criminal manipulation of printing money to buy the bonds, Britain wouldn't have gotten into the war. Germany would still be a kingdom, and Hitler wouldn't rise. And there'd be small changes in the borders of various European countries. I struggle to see how it could have been worse. I mean, I struggle to see who benefited from 4 years of carnage in Europe. And then this came at the height of civilization. Before that, the people of Europe had the golden era. Under the gold standard, they were trading with one another, they traveled, and technology was advancing. And they did not expect this war to last this long. And, my favorite story from World War I is the Christmas truce football game, which I mentioned in my book. Mm-hmm. British and German soldiers, at the height of the conflict, they stopped on Christmas Day and they played a football game against each other. I mean, this is not a real war where it's a war for survival. Britain didn't want to end Germany. Germany didn't want to end Britain. It was just kings who were emboldened by the fact that they had a printing press playing with the lives of the people. And take away the printing press, take away their ability to print money, I think we'd have had a much, much, much better 20th century.
Yeah, the counterfactual history. Neil Ferguson is a historian who gets in quite a bit of trouble. Basically, he's a Brit, suggesting that if Britain stayed out of World War I, there would be no Hitler, there would be no World War II.
Yep, I agree entirely.